Ambassador Zethkar stretched his forearms as he reviewed the data on his screen. After 300 years of service to the Galactic Concordance Council, first contact missions had become routine. Find a new species, study them for a few cycles, offer them membership as a junior partner, and watch them gratefully accept their place in galactic society. The newest species lived on a small, blue planet they called Earth, orbiting a yellow star in what the Council designated as Sol System. The initial scans showed all the usual signs of emerging intelligence: bipedal creatures, basic tool use, primitive space technology, and radio communications. Nothing unusual there. Ambassador, we're approaching the target system, announced Navigation Officer Velther from across the bridge. Her 6 eyes tracked multiple displays at once, a useful trait for her species. Excellent. Standard approach protocol. Set up observation posts on their moon. We'll watch them for a few days before making contact. Zethkar settled back in his chair. This would be his 47th successful first contact. The Council would probably give him another medal. The ship moved silently through space, its advanced stealth technology making it invisible to primitive sensors. The Council had perfected this approach over thousands of years. Every species they had encountered followed the same pattern. They lived peaceful lives, ate plants, worked together without conflict, and welcomed the wisdom of older galactic civilizations. Sir, the species appears to be quite active, reported Science Officer Kexmore, his tentacles dancing across his control panel. They have thousands of artificial satellites around their planet, much more than we expected for their technology level. Zethkar waved a dismissive hand. Probably just communication devices. These young species love to talk to each other. Remember the Velinari? They had covered their entire moon with radio towers. Yes, sir, but these satellites seem different. Many of them are pointing outward, toward space, not down at their planet. Curious, but not unusual. They're probably just looking at stars. Most species go through an astronomy phase. Zethkar had seen it all before. Young civilizations always thought they were the center of the universe until they learned better. The ship reached Earth's moon and began setting up the standard observation equipment. Invisible sensors would monitor the planet's communications, track their technology development, and identify the best candidates for first contact. Usually this took about 10 days. Sir, Velther's voice carried a note of confusion. I'm getting some strange readings from the planet's surface. They seem to have detected our approach. Zethkar's primary eyes focused on her station. Impossible. Our stealth technology has never been detected by a primitive species. I'm sure of the readings, sir. Multiple tracking stations on the planet's surface are pointing directly at our position. They started tracking us 3-time units after we entered their system. Science Officer Kexmore's tentacles moved faster across his controls. Ambassador, I'm picking up increased communication activity across their planet. The signals are encrypted, but the volume has increased by 300% since we arrived. A cold feeling crept up Zethkar's spine. In 300 years of first contact missions, nothing like this had ever happened. Species weren't supposed to detect council ships. They weren't supposed to have encryption. They weren't supposed to react to invisible visitors. Perhaps their equipment is more advanced than we thought, offered Velther. Zethkar pulled up the initial survey data. The humans had basic nuclear technology, simple chemical rockets, and primitive computers. Nothing that should allow them to see through Council stealth systems. Yet somehow they had spotted the ship within hours of arrival. Sir, we're receiving a transmission, announced Communications Officer Darth. His blue skin had turned pale green, a sign of stress in his species. From where? The planet's surface. It's directed at our exact position. The bridge fell silent. This had never happened before in the history of the Council. First contact was always initiated by the Council when they decided the species was ready. Species didn't make contact with them. Put it on the main screen. The display showed a human face. The creature looked directly at the camera, as if it could see them. When it spoke, the translation systems easily converted the sounds into understandable words. Greetings, visitors. We welcome you to our system. We would like to arrange a meeting to discuss peaceful relations between our species. Zethkar stared at the screen. The human's mouth was curved upward in what the computer identified as a smile. But something about the expression made him uncomfortable. The creature's forward-facing eyes seemed to track his movements, even though that was impossible through a simple transmission. How did they know we were here? Whispered Velthor. The human continued speaking. We have prepared a meeting location on our moon. We believe this would be neutral ground for initial discussions. We hope you will join us there. Kexmore's tentacles had stopped moving entirely. Sir, they're suggesting a meeting location. On their moon, where we just set up our observation posts. That's impossible. They could know about our equipment. Sir, Darth's voice was barely above a whisper. I'm detecting multiple objects launching from the planet's surface. They appear to be heading toward the moon. Zethkar felt his throat go dry. Are they weapons? Unknown, sir. They're too small to be warships, but they're moving faster than anything in our initial technology assessment suggested they could build. The human on the screen seemed to notice their delay in responding. We understand you may need time to consider our invitation. Please know that we come in peace. We look forward to learning about your civilization and sharing information about ours. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Zethkar had read the files on every successful first contact in Council history. None of them mentioned anything like this. Species were supposed to cower when they first encountered superior technology. They were supposed to offer tribute and beg for guidance. They weren't supposed to invite the Council to meetings on neutral ground. Sir, the objects from the planet have reached the moon. They're setting up some kind of structures near our observation posts. Can they detect our equipment? Unknown, sir. But they've positioned their structures in a perfect circle around our installation. Either they're incredibly lucky, or they know exactly where we are. Zethkar looked at the data streaming across his screens. Everything about this first contact was wrong. The humans had detected them immediately, responded within hours, and now they were setting up what looked like a meeting facility right next to secret Council equipment. Sir, what are your orders? Zethkar stared at the tactical display. 46 previous first contacts had followed the established pattern. The 47th was already completely unlike anything in Council records. Prepare a message to Council headquarters. Tell them we may have found something unusual. As he spoke, another transmission arrived from the planet. This time, it showed multiple humans, all wearing matching clothing and carrying what looked like primitive weapons. They stood in formation, disciplined and organized, while one of them spoke. We're ready when you are. Zethkar realized he might need more than just another medal for this mission. The meeting facility the humans had built was unlike anything in Council records. Instead of the usual simple shelters that primitive species constructed, this was a sophisticated structure with multiple rooms, advanced life support systems, and what appeared to be defensive positions around the perimeter. Ambassador Zethkar stood in the main chamber, trying to hide his nervousness. His diplomatic team had prepared for weeks, studying every piece of human communication they could intercept. Nothing had prepared them for what they found when they arrived. The humans were waiting for them. 12 individuals sat around a curved table, each one different from the others. Most species the Council encountered looked nearly identical, but humans seemed to come in many varieties. Different skin colors, facial structures, and body types. Even their clothing was different, though all of it looked functional rather than decorative. "Welcome," said the human at the center of the table. Her name was Shen Wei, according to the translation system, and she carried the title of ambassador. "Thank you for accepting our invitation." Zethkar activated his universal translator and began the standard first contact speech. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Galactic Concordance Council. We come in peace to offer your species membership in our great alliance of civilized worlds." Chen Wei smiled, but her eyes remained focused and alert. "We appreciate your offer, Ambassador. Before we discuss membership, we would like to understand more about your organization. How many species belong to your council? What are the territorial boundaries? What military forces do you maintain?" The questions hit Zethkar like physical blows. In 46 previous first contacts, no species had ever asked about military forces during the opening ceremony. Most species asked about technology gifts or cultural exchanges. Military questions were what conquering species asked. That is, the Council maintains peaceful relations among 47 species across 3 galactic arms, he managed to say. "We have no need for large military forces because all our member species are peaceful." "Interesting," said the human sitting to Chen Wei's left. The nameplate identified him as General Martinez. A general. They had brought a military leader to a first contact meeting. How do you handle disputes between member species? What happens if a species refuses to follow council decisions? Science Officer Kexmore leaned toward Zethkar and whispered, "Sir, these questions are not in any first contact protocol I've studied." The humans seemed to hear the whisper despite the translation delay. Chen Wei spoke again. "We don't mean to make you uncomfortable. On Earth, we've learned that understanding power structures is important for successful diplomacy. We want to make sure any agreement we reach will be honored by all parties." Power structures? Zethkar had never heard the term used in diplomatic context. Who makes decisions in your council? How are those decisions enforced? What resources does the council control? These questions came from a human identified as Dr. Sarah Kim, whose title suggested she was some kind of scientist. Zethkar looked around the room, trying to understand what was happening. The humans sat in a formation that allowed each of them to see all exits. They kept their hands visible on the table, but something about their posture suggested they were ready to move quickly. None of this matched the behavior patterns of peaceful herbivorous species. "The council makes decisions by consensus," he said carefully. "All member species contribute according to their abilities and receive protection and guidance in return." Protection from what? The question came from a younger human near the end of the table. From the dangers of space. Cosmic radiation, asteroid impacts, resource shortages? Zethkar trailed off. The truth was, the Council had never faced external threats because every species they encountered was peaceful. Chen Wei exchanged glances with the other humans. Something passed between them? Some kind of silent communication that the council delegation couldn't interpret. "Ambassador," Chen Wei said, "we've prepared some information about Earth and human civilization. We thought you might find it interesting." She activated a holographic display that showed Earth from space. But instead of the peaceful blue marble that most species presented during first contact, this image highlighted the planet's defensive capabilities. Orbital stations, satellite networks, missile installations, and what appeared to be ships hiding in the asteroid belt. "As you can see, we've developed certain capabilities to protect our world," Chen Wei continued. "We believe in being prepared for unexpected situations." General Martinez leaned forward. "We noticed your ship has impressive stealth technology. Our engineers would be very interested in understanding how it works. Of course, we'd be happy to share some of our own innovations in return." Zethkar felt his breathing speed up. They were asking about military technology. They wanted to trade weapons information. This was not how first contact was supposed to work. "I'm not sure that's appropriate," he said. "Of course," Chunwei said smoothly. "We understand these things take time. Perhaps we could start with something simpler. We've analyzed the composition of your ship's hull. Very impressive materials. We think we might be able to improve the design by about 15%. Caxmore's tentacles went rigid. "They've been scanning our ship?" "We always scan new visitors," said Dr. Kim, as if this was perfectly normal. "For security purposes. We're sure you understand." The humans had been studying Council technology from the moment they arrived. They had weapons, they had defenses, and they were treating this first contact like a business negotiation between equals, rather than a gift from a superior civilization to a primitive one. "We should discuss territorial arrangements," said Chunwei. "Earth claims this entire star system, of course, but we're open to establishing border agreements with your nearest Council territories. We wouldn't want any misunderstandings." "Border agreements?" Zethkar's voice came out as a squeak. "Naturally. We assume you have similar agreements with all your neighboring species. We found that clear boundaries prevent conflicts." Conflicts. The humans expected conflicts. They planned for conflicts. They built their entire first contact protocol around the assumption that they might need to fight the Council. General Martinez consulted a device on his wrist. "Ambassador Zethkar, we've prepared guest quarters for your delegation. We thought you might want to stay for several days while we work out the details of our mutual defense treaty." "Mutual defense treaty?" "Well, yes. Once we're allies, we'll want to coordinate our military efforts. Earth has a strong space navy, and we'd be happy to help protect Council territories from any threats you might face." Chunwei smiled again. That same expression that somehow made Zethkar deeply uncomfortable. "We're looking forward to a long and productive partnership." As the meeting ended and the humans escorted them to their quarters, Zethkar realized something that made his stomach turn. The humans weren't acting like a species that wanted to join the Council. They were acting like a species that expected the Council to join them, and they had the weapons to enforce their expectations. The cultural exchange sessions began 3 days after the initial meeting. Ambassador Zethkar had hoped these would be more normal, following the standard pattern where primitive species showed their simple art and music, while the Council shared advanced scientific concepts. Instead, the sessions became a series of revelations that shattered everything the Council thought they knew about sapient evolution. Dr. Kim had set up a presentation area in one of the facility's large rooms. "We thought you might enjoy seeing some examples of human culture," she said, activating a holographic display system that was somehow more advanced than anything in the Council's databases. The first images showed human cities. But these weren't the peaceful garden communities that every other Council species built. These were massive structures of metal and glass, reaching toward the sky like the teeth of some enormous predator. Millions of humans moved through them in organized patterns that looked almost military in their precision. "Your cities are very large," commented Science Officer Kexmore, his tentacles curled with nervousness. "Oh, these are just medium-sized cities," Dr. Kim replied cheerfully. "We have much bigger ones. Earth's population is approaching 8 billion individuals." Zethkar nearly fell from his chair. 8 billion. The largest Council species had perhaps 50 million individuals across multiple planets. How could one planet support 8 billion of anything? "That seems like it would create resource conflicts," he managed to say. "It used to," Dr. Kim admitted. "But we've gotten very good at managing competition. Would you like to see how?" The display changed to show humans engaged in what could only be described as ritualized combat. They chased the ball across a field, crashing into each other with tremendous force, while thousands of other humans watched and shouted encouragement. The translation system labeled it as entertainment. You fight each other for fun? Velther's 6 eyes were wide with disbelief. Well, it's not really fighting, explained Dr. Kim. It's a game. We have thousands of different games. Some involve physical competition. Some involve strategic thinking. Some involve both. Competition is how we improve ourselves. She showed them more examples. Humans racing machines at dangerous speeds. Humans climbing impossibly high mountains. Humans diving into deep water filled with creatures that could kill them. All of it labeled as entertainment or sport. We don't understand, said Kexmore. Where is the cooperation? Where is the peaceful coexistence? Dr. Kim looked puzzled. There's cooperation in all of these activities. Sports teams work together to compete against other teams. Mountain climbers help each other reach the summit. Even individual competitions require cooperation from judges, organizers, medical staff, and spectators. But they're still competing, protested Zethkar. Of course. Competition drives innovation and improvement. How do your species motivate individuals to excel if they don't compete? It was a simple question that revealed a fundamental gap between human and council thinking. Council species didn't compete. They worked together toward common goals, shared resources equally, and avoided conflict at all costs. The idea that competition could be cooperative was beyond their understanding. Let me show you something else, Dr. Kim said, changing the display again. These are some of our domestic animals. The images showed creatures that made the council delegation step backward in fear. Massive 4-legged beasts with sharp teeth and powerful muscles. Sleek predators with retractable claws and hunting instincts. Flying creatures with razor-sharp beaks and talons. You live with these predators? Whispered Velther. They're not predators anymore, Dr. Kim explained patiently. Well, they were originally, but we've bred them to be companions. Dogs were wolves once, but we changed them over thousands of generations to make them friendly and helpful. Cats still have hunting instincts, but they use them to catch pests that damage our food supplies. Horses used to run wild, but now they help us travel and carry heavy loads. Zethkar stared at the images in horror. The humans had taken wild predators and changed them. They had reshaped other species to serve human needs. It was a concept so alien to council thinking that he couldn't properly process it. You modified other species? He asked faintly. Not genetically, if that's what you're asking. We used selective breeding. We chose animals with traits we wanted and helped them reproduce more than animals without those traits. Over time, the species changed to match what we needed. But they were wild creatures. Free creatures. Dr. Kim looked confused. They were struggling to survive. We gave them food, shelter, medical care, and protection from other predators. In exchange, they help us with various tasks. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. The final horror came when Dr. Kim showed them human children. But instead of the small, helpless creatures that most species produced, human children appeared to be learning combat skills from an early age. The display showed young humans practicing martial arts, playing war games, and learning to use weapons. Your offspring practice violence? Kexmore's voice was barely audible. They practice self-defense and teamwork, Dr. Kim corrected. The universe can be dangerous. We want our children to be prepared for whatever they might face. One image showed a human child, perhaps 7 years old, leading a group of domestic animals across a field. The translation system identified it as playing with pets, but what the council saw was a tiny human, commanding a pack of predators. That child is controlling those creatures, observed Velther. She's playing with her pets, Dr. Kim said. still not understanding their distress. Dogs are very loyal to humans. They'll follow commands and protect their human families from danger. Cats are more independent, but they're affectionate and helpful around the house. The session ended with Dr. Kim showing them examples of human art, paintings of battles, sculptures of warriors, music that celebrated victory and conflict, stories about heroes who overcame impossible odds through violence and cunning. Every piece of human culture seemed to revolve around competition, conflict, and conquest. As the council delegation returned to their quarters, Zefkar felt a growing sense of panic. Everything they had learned about the humans contradicted the basic principles of sapient evolution. Species weren't supposed to be competitive. They weren't supposed to practice violence for entertainment. They weren't supposed to reshape other species to serve their needs. "Sir," said Kexmore quietly, "I don't think these humans are a normal sapient species." "No," Zefkar agreed. "I don't think they're herbivores at all." That night, as he reviewed the day's data, Zefkar made a connection that filled him with terror. The humans' forward-facing eyes, their competitive nature, their practice of controlling other species, their preparation for violence, it all pointed to one impossible conclusion. Humans were predators. Not former predators who had evolved past their hunting instincts, but active predators who had simply learned to cooperate with each other to become more efficient killers. And the council had just made first contact with 8 billion of them. Ambassador Zefkar barely slept that night. By morning, he had made a decision that went against every first contact protocol the council had ever established. He was going to test the humans to determine exactly how dangerous they were. He had to know what the council was dealing with. "I've arranged some additional cultural exchanges," he announced to the human delegation the next morning. "We thought it might be interesting to compare how our species approach various challenges." Chen Wei smiled that unsettling smile. "That sounds fascinating. What kind of challenges did you have in mind?" Zefkar activated his personal communication device and spoke to his ship. Within minutes, his crew had set up the first scenario in an empty section of the lunar facility. It was a standard council puzzle designed to test problem-solving abilities and cooperative instincts. "This is a resource management simulation," Zefkar explained to the group of humans who had volunteered to participate. "You have limited supplies and need to survive in a hostile environment. The goal is to work together to conserve resources until rescue arrives." The humans studied the setup for exactly 37 seconds. Then one of them, a woman named Lieutenant Torres, turned to her teammates and said, "Okay, this is obviously a test. They want to see how we handle stress and resource limitations. Standard survival scenario." Zefkar felt his heart skip a beat. They had identified the scenario as a test immediately. No other species had ever done that. "The shelter design is inefficient," continued Torres, examining the equipment they have been given. "We can improve heat retention by 15% if we reconfigure the support beams. And this water recycling system can be modified to increase output." Another human, Dr. Park, was studying the environmental parameters. "The weather patterns suggest a storm cycle every 6 hours. If we time our resource gathering correctly, we can collect 3 times the expected supplies during the calm periods." Within 2 hours, the humans had not only solved the survival scenario, but it turned the hostile environment into a resource-positive situation. They were generating more supplies than they consumed, had built improvements to the original shelter design, and had developed a systematic plan for long-term colonization of the area. "How did they do that?" whispered Velther as they observed from the control room. "They didn't just survive," replied Kexmore in amazement. "They conquered the environment." Zefkar quickly set up the second test, a strategic simulation that had taken the Council's best military analysts decades to master. The scenario involved managing conflicts between multiple fictional species, while balancing resource allocation and territorial disputes. The humans approached it like a game. Okay, so the Xerians need water rights, the Bolvari want mining access, and the Kelthans are claiming historical territory, summarized Major Chun, one of the human participants. Classic three-way resource conflict with ethnic complications. Standard mediation approach won't work because the Xerians and Bolvari have a history of warfare, added Dr. Singh, consulting data that she had somehow memorized in minutes. We need to create interdependent benefits that make cooperation more profitable than conflict. Unless we're missing something, interrupted Captain Williams. What if this isn't really about resources? What if one of these species is testing the others to see who's willing to fight? The humans spent the next 4 hours developing 3 separate solutions. One diplomatic, one economic, and one that Captain Williams quietly called the military option. They presented all 3 to Zethkar as if having multiple contingency plans was perfectly normal. You developed backup plans? Zethkar asked weakly. Always, replied Major Chan. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. What if negotiations fail? What if someone acts in bad faith? What if there are factors you haven't told us about? The final test was supposed to be impossible. It was a moral dilemma scenario that had caused emotional breakdowns in several council species. The humans were presented with a choice: save a small group of their own kind or save a larger group of strangers. Knowing that they couldn't save both, the humans discussed it for exactly 12 minutes before reaching a consensus. We save both, announced Chun Wei. That's not possible, Zethkar protested. The scenario specifically states that you must choose one or the other. Then the scenario is poorly designed, replied Chen Wei calmly. Dr. Martinez, what's the structural integrity of the containment walls between the two groups? I can breach them with the tools we've been given, Dr. Martinez confirmed. It'll be dangerous, but manageable. Lieutenant Torres, can you redirect the environmental hazard using the emergency systems? Yes, but someone will have to manually operate the controls from inside the danger zone. I'll do it, volunteered Captain Williams immediately. 3 other humans offered to take his place. Within 20 minutes, the humans had rewritten the scenario entirely. Instead of choosing between 2 groups, they had created a third option that saved everyone while putting themselves at risk. When Zethkar pointed out that someone could die attempting the rescue, the humans looked at him as if he had said something strange. That's what we do, explained Chen Wei simply. We protect others, even if it's dangerous. But the risk calculation. Some things are more important than risk calculations, interrupted Captain Williams. If we can save lives, we save them. All of them. That evening, Zethkar reviewed the test results with his senior staff. The data painted a picture that terrified him more than any military threat the Council had ever faced. They didn't just solve our puzzles, reported Kexmore. They improved on them. Every scenario we presented, they found ways to exceed the expected outcomes. And they worked together without any formal command structure, added Velther. They just naturally coordinate their efforts and support each other's decisions. The moral dilemma test was particularly disturbing, continued Kexmore. They refused to accept that anyone had to die. They were willing to risk their own lives to save strangers. Zethkar stared at the tactical assessments scrolling across his screen. The humans had demonstrated strategic thinking superior to Council military academies. Problem-solving abilities that surpassed their most advanced scientists, and a moral code that prioritized protecting others over their own safety. Sir, Velther said quietly, I've been analyzing their communication patterns during the tests. They weren't just working together. They were teaching each other. Every human became more capable by working with the others. They learned from each other in real time. It appears so, And sir, there's something else. During each test, they kept asking about our species. They wanted to know about council capabilities, council weaknesses, council response patterns. Zethkar felt cold dread settling in his stomach. They were testing us while we were testing them. Yes, sir. And based on their questions and observations, I believe they've learned more about the council in 3 days than we've learned about them. The final horror came when Chen Wei contacted them that evening with a simple message. Thank you for the training exercises, Ambassador. They were very educational. We'd like to propose some scenarios of our own tomorrow. We think you'll find them interesting. Zethkar realized that the humans hadn't been participating in tests. They had been gathering intelligence while allowing the council to demonstrate their capabilities. The predators had been studying their prey while pretending to be evaluated. And tomorrow, the humans wanted to run their own scenarios. The emergency session of the Galactic Concordance Council convened within hours of Zethkar's urgent transmission. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the Great Chamber on Concordia Prime. There are various forms of agitation filling the air with a mixture of pheromones, electromagnetic distress signals, and subsonic alarm calls. High Chancellor Morgeth called for order with her powerful voice, but even she seemed shaken. Ambassador Zethkar, please present your findings to the full council. Zethkar stood at the central podium, his forearms trembling as he activated the holographic display. Honored representatives, we have encountered something unprecedented in the history of galactic civilization. The species known as humans are not what they appear to be. The images from Earth appeared above the assembly. Cities filled with billions of predators, competitive sports that celebrated violence, children trained for combat from birth. The council chamber erupted in alarmed sounds from dozens of different species. They are apex predators, Zethkar continued, his voice growing stronger. But unlike any predator we have encountered before, they have learned to cooperate with each other on a planetary scale. They have 8 billion individuals working together toward common goals. Impossible, declared Representative Velthara from the Sisterhood of Peaceful Worlds. Predatory species cannot achieve sapience. They lack the cooperative instincts necessary for civilization. That's what we believed, Zethkar replied. We were wrong. Humans have achieved cooperation through competition. They fight against external challenges so intensely that they have learned to work together perfectly. Military advisor Kekstar leaned forward in his seat. What is their technological capability? Advanced beyond our initial estimates. They detected our stealth technology immediately upon our arrival. They have modified our designs and improved them. They have weapon systems we don't fully understand, and they have spread beyond their home planet. A wave of panic swept through the assembly. Species that had known only peace for millennia suddenly faced the reality of encountering organized predators with advanced technology. How many ships do they have? Demanded General Torvax from the Defense Coordination Committee. We don't know, Zithkar admitted. They showed us what they wanted us to see. But our latest intelligence suggests they have established colonies in 3 nearby star systems in the past few cycles. They move faster than we thought possible. Chancellor Morgeth struggled to maintain order as the chamber descended into chaos. Representatives shouted questions and concerns in dozens of languages, while translation systems worked overtime to convert the cacophony into understandable speech. What do they want from us? Called out Senator Bixtel from the Inner Rim Alliance. That's what terrifies me most, Zethkar replied. They want to help us. The chamber fell silent. They believe we are facing some kind of external threat. They think we brought them superior military technology and advanced testing scenarios because we need their help in a war. They are preparing to offer their services as our military arm. Representative Velthara's skin had turned pale blue with shock. They want to be our military? 8 billion predators with advanced technology and perfect cooperative instincts want to become the Council's armed forces. Zethkar confirmed. They think we are testing them to see if they are worthy allies. General Torvax stood up abruptly. We must strike first, before they can spread further. If we coordinate our fleets, with what? Interrupted Admiral Kexmore. Our ships are designed for exploration and peaceful trade. Theirs are built for war. They have been preparing for conflict their entire evolutionary history. We have been preparing for peace. Then we isolate them, suggested Chancellor Morgeth. We establish a quarantine zone around their territory and prevent them from making contact with other species. Too late, Zethkar said grimly. They have already made contact with the Belvery Mining Consortium and the Zarin Agricultural Collective. Both species have reported that human ambassadors arrived offering mutual protection agreements and technology exchanges. They're forming alliances, whispered Admiral Kexmore. They're building a power base, corrected General Torvex. Classic predatory expansion behavior. They will offer protection to weaker species, then gradually take control of their resources and territory. Representative Velthar's voice carried a note of hysteria. We created this problem. If we had never made contact, they would have found us eventually, Zethkar interrupted. Their expansion rate suggests they would have encountered Council territory within 10 cycles, whether we contacted them or not. Chancellor Morgeth called for emergency voting procedures, all in favor of immediate military action against the human threat. 12 species voted in favor, all in favor of diplomatic isolation protocols. 18 species voted for isolation, all in favor of appeasement and managed integration. 17 species voted for appeasement. The Council was split almost evenly, paralyzed by indecision while the human threat continued to grow. As the debate raged, Zithkar's communication device signaled an incoming message. Ambassador, came Chen Wei's cheerful voice. We wanted to update you on recent developments. We've established preliminary agreements with several of your member species. They seem very interested in our defensive capabilities. The chamber fell silent as the message continued. We've also been thinking about your organizational structure. The Council seems to have some inefficiencies that we could help streamline. We have extensive experience in coordinating large groups toward common goals. They want to reorganize the Council. General Torvac said weakly. We're particularly interested in your resource allocation systems. Chen Wei's message went on. Some of your member species seem to be operating below optimal efficiency. We could help them improve their output while ensuring fair distribution of benefits. They want to manage our economy, whispered Admiral Kexmore. Finally, we've noticed some territorial disputes among your border regions. We'd be happy to provide mediation services and peacekeeping forces to resolve these conflicts. We understand that violence is distasteful to your species, so we can handle the unpleasant work for you. The message ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. They think we need their help, Chancellor Morgeth said slowly. They think we invited them into galactic civilization because we're too weak to manage it ourselves. And they're probably right, added Representative Velthara bitterly. A species that has survived 8 billion individuals on one planet while maintaining advanced technology probably could run our civilization more efficiently than we do. Admiral Kexmore activated his emergency communication system. All Council fleets, this is Defense Command. Implement Protocol 7 immediately. What's Protocol 7? Asked several representatives simultaneously. Emergency evacuation of all Council headquarters and critical infrastructure, Admiral Kexmore replied. If the humans are offering to take over galactic administration, we need to be somewhere else when they decide to do it. As alarm sirens began wailing across Concordia Prime, Zefkar received one final message from Chen Wei. Ambassador, we're very excited about our future partnership. Humanity has always believed that with great power comes great responsibility. We look forward to helping the Council achieve its full potential. Looking around at the panicking representatives of 47 peaceful species, Zefkar realized that the humans weren't conquering the galaxy through force. They were conquering it through HELPFULNESS. And somehow that was infinitely more terrifying.